All right, guys. Good morning. Melissa here. I should probably turn the light on. Hold on. All right. There. That's a little bit better. Good morning, guys. Just waking up. Just getting up and getting things planned for the day. So what am I doing today? Well, I started off by sending an email to this pastor, and I told him off again. Do not be afraid, ladies, to tell a pastor off. We are taught to be nice. We're taught to never talk back or say anything to somebody in authority, right? Bull. Bull. You need to protect yourself from those who are wolves in sheep's clothing, in my opinion. Honestly, I don't say that lightly. But there is a righteous anger. There really is when somebody has pushed you away from church. So, as Christians, we have a huge responsibility to be a light to the world, to be able um, to bring people to Christ, to point people to Christ. Anyone who doesn't point you to Christ and has their own self-righteousness or their own good enough person would be not preaching the real gospel. We have a responsibility to push people to God, right? So it is scary right now, guys, what we're seeing. We're seeing Kirk Cameron fall from the faith. We're seeing churches that fall away from the truth. We see a lot of this. There was just a woman pastor at another church talking about how she's married to her husband, so that's okay. And there's a lot of liberal churches. There's a lot of churches that are not walking right. And yes, churches are usually in charge and they usually, are the ones leading, and they are, leading the sheep, God's people, closer to Christ. Okay, but when you see things in a church, you need to speak up. So one, if you see pornography from a pastor, I'm like, you're fired, you're done, you know better, right? Some churches feel like, well, he was just struggling or whatever. Nope, you know better, just like Adam knew better, right? Disobedience. So that's a big one. If you see a pastor's character not hospitable, unkind, this is a pastor, guys. This is a guy who has much more responsibility than your average person. So, right off the bat, I had sent an email that, that basically they don't help people. They don't help, I had said. And, it was kind of a rhetorical question too, because the system they had down, I had go to this deacon, go to this deacon, go to this deacon. I was told at the garage they would call me, right? And they had an idea, they would figure some things out. That's what someone said, one of the secretaries. And then in front of the garage, I have to say, I'm sorry, but the church was supposed to call me and they didn't keep their word, right? When you don't keep your word, for the most part, you're considered a liar. So, I mean, that did not look good to the garage at all. And then I had Save the Stork say, well, we can figure out somebody in the neighborhood who might be able to help you at a cheaper price. I'm like, this is the cheapest price I'm going to get. So this particular garage was very good, very good. Not only did they do a price match, but then they gave me another $20 off as a manager's special. But man, what an awful example to the garage, because they're sitting there. I had one person helping me. They're sitting there waiting for payment from the next person so we all can get this done, right? And I told the pastor, what an awful example you all are. And he's like, well, that was because of your expectation. And I said, no, actually, you told me you'd be calling me, and I get an email after the garage closes. So look out for the sheep and wolves clothing. And this is why I think he is one, because of his character. And I'm sorry, but when you see the fruit of a pastor, and this is the very first conversation I ever have with him on the phone, and he's just very vicious and rude to you. Unbelievable to me still. I mean, there are spiritual consequences to this. I am still reeling like, holy cow, what was that, right? So right off the bat, like within the first two sentences, he starts accusing me and slandering me of things I didn't even say. So, bad character right there. And then to send me, to tell me I can't appeal his decision. There is no appeal. Of course I can. You go to the members of the church, right? You go right there and you tell them what's really happening when people ask for help. And not am I just somebody asking for help, but of the household of God, right? Which the church has a responsibility to take care of. And even talking to another pastor, he's like, the church you're going to, they should be helping you. I'm like, exactly. And they're not doing anything. And this is why in the church, when you are going to a church, they have a responsibility to help each other out. And that's what deacons do. Deacons are in charge of serving. That's all it means, is a servant, like a waiter at a restaurant. They are to be full of the love of Christ and to help the body of Christ, right? So I get this pastor who I haven't even talked to approaching me in a way that is just so defensive and just so rude and covering his own butt, basically, because I called him on it. I said, you don't help. This is 3 or 4 days, I'm not getting anything. I said, why don't you look at your systems instead of blaming me? So, to be like, I said, I'll see you Sunday. And he's like, what? And I'm like, I'll see you Sunday. So he was just freaking rude. He didn't really invite me back. And you got to stand. There's only been, a couple churches that I've had issues with. And one of them we were able to work it out. But I have confronted churches. I've gone to churches with women pastors, and I'm like, you need to repent. There's nothing in the Bible that says you're supposed to be preaching as a woman. Not only do we not have leadership, guys, but women, not in the church, okay? Women can be the president of the United States. They can do a lot of stuff, but not in the church. It's super clear. Women are not to be pastors in the church. Yes, you can be in charge of a women's ministry. Yes, you can be a pastor's wife, but there's no such thing as a woman pastor in the Bible. So that's pretty clear. Even if you are, like your husband's the pastor and you're like the title pastor, it's not biblical. You are a pastor's wife. You're there to support your husband. That's your role, not only as a wife, but as a pastor's wife, is to partner with him, but you don't have any official role in the church. And number one, how would you do that? We're called as women to raise up children, to multiply the earth and raise up children. So how would you run a whole household and be in charge of a church, right? There's no possible way. And back in the day, women had many children. Think of having like 10 kids. How would you have time to run a church, right? And nor should you, because Adam was created first. He was in disobedience, and Eve is the one who was deceived. And by the order, it is not biblical for a woman to be in any official leadership role in that capacity. Women are to teach women. Women are to teach children, but not teach men, not have authority over men as far as in a church setting. It actually says women are to be silent in a church. That doesn't mean you don't talk, okay? That doesn't mean you don't talk, but it does say if you have a question, ask your husband, right? Go home and ask your husband. Doesn't mean you can't ask the pastor questions. It just means, again, it's reiterated your husband is the leader. I mean, he's the leader. He is protecting you. He is providing for you. He's leading. He's loving. He is supposed to take the bullet for you. Okay, that's how it's supposed to work. So now when you have a situation like I do, where my husband abandoned his whole entire family, how do you deal with that, right? I am supposed to have extra care from a church. I don't know if you put me in the widow category. I guess you would put me in the widow category because I don't have a husband. And back in the day, I don't think divorce was really part of the culture, the church culture. So, I mean, it was always one man and one woman for life. So, yes, I guess you'd have to put me in the widow culture category, is how I'm trying to think of this biblically, who does depend on God, which I do, and who's full of good works, which I try to be. And because I'm not a younger widow, the younger widows are called to remarry. I'm not looking to remarry. I'm looking just to, be full of good works for God. So I think there is definitely a responsibility with the church. And yes, do your children have a responsibility to look out for their mother? Yes, but is it now? I don't think so. I'm still young enough to work, and I don't ever plan on retiring, guys. I had just called someone and they put 55 in the age of senior now, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding. I'm just starting to live my life. I just am now having an empty nest, and I have a lot of things I can do with my life. So I do not consider myself a senior, and the world can put that age down and down, but no. I think Trump just put it up, right? No, not until you're like 80s, 90s, then maybe my kids will have to take care of me. But even then, I plan on having, I'm really focused on money. I told you right now with working. So I am focused on a retirement fund now. So I don't have to ask my kids for help, and I can actually leave something behind for them. So that's how it's supposed to ideally work. And you leave something behind for your grandkids. And so this church was so freaking rude, guys. I have never seen a church so rude. They're like, go ask your family, friends, or your other churches for help. And churches you've been to before, and it's like, why? I'm going to your church. Why would I do that? And so, freaking rude as hell. So I did let the pastor know today that Mike had asked me how I met Jack, and I was going to tell him from a strip club. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, ladies, and show them how ridiculous they are. And I also said, because you don't help, I want to know now, this leads to the question, how Calvinist are you? I mean, Scripture is very clear. You do everything as if everything depends on you, but you trust God. So I'm like, I'm doing everything I can do. I work. When you learn, your learning's not just in vain. You are to constantly be learning, not as one who just is always learning with no goal in mind, but so that you come to the knowledge of Christ. So there are those who are always learning, but they do not know God, right? We learn so we know God. Any educated person should know God. So, I'm doing everything I can. I continue my education spiritually, worldly wise. I'm always learning. I work hard, I help people, and I'm like, what is it that I'm not doing? So for me to go to a church and to persevere and to be filled with the Spirit and to be very strong, a lot of men have a bad attitude toward women who are strong and feisty. They do. They feel like there's like this misogyny of women should just be quiet and not talk at all. That is not biblical, guys. Um, we do adorn ourselves with a meek, that means yielded. Yielded to the right stuff, not yielded to any man, not yielded to anybody, yielded to God. Meek and a quiet spirit. Quiet is not you're as quiet as a church mouse. Quiet is you have a quiet confidence and trust in God that He is taking care of you. And there's no doubt in my mind that God is taking care of me. There is no doubt that He is providing in a million ways. So I pray to God on a regular basis, daily, throughout the whole entire day. I will pray to God, and I see Him meet my needs constantly. And, I think it was Dwight Moody did this with his orphanage. He actually prayed God would bring breakfast, God would bring money for clothing, God would bring this, and God would answer his prayers. So that is a huge testimony of how God provides. He does. He meets all my needs. I mean, even if I was homeless, He would still meet my needs. So, I wouldn't die, is what I'm saying. I wouldn't die until it's time to go. So, I'm all set, guys. I can ask people for help, but God is on my side and He's taking care of me. And we are to ask. We are to be persevering. We are to keep knocking. We are to, do what we can. So it falls on them, and woe to them when they will not help others, because it's hypocritical. It's like, doesn't God help you every day? Doesn't God take care of you? Aren't you a church that asks people for help? Not just with a tithe, but way up and beyond with church building, other things, other projects. Don't your pastors get paid well? Oh, this guy at Life Network, he asks us for money for the galas that I've been to. But when a woman goes to a church, you can't help her. Let me see your budget. Let me see what you're doing with it. Let me see. So, as somebody who's the household, a member of the household of God, you don't want to help your family. That's bogus, guys. And so God has put me in this situation for some reason, not to have to ask for help once in a blue moon, but to have a long-term help until I get on my feet more with work. So I just missed like a week of work here, and I have applied to a few more jobs, and in my business I'm trying to get going more. So I am working on all this, and somebody was very encouraging to me, a friend. He said to me, keep your head up, and we know that right before, basically a trial, you right before success you have trials. Something like right before you pull the arrow back or something, you have success. I forget how he said it, but that is the truth, guys. Right before you have success, you will have many trials coming your way. So you got to keep your head up. You got to keep going straight. There's turbulence that is coming your way, or is behind you, in front of you, is in the present, and you have to keep on trucking, guys, and know that success is around the corner. So that's what I got for now. And I did let him know why I was not going to their church. I find his attitude stinks. I see the fruit. I don't know what's in the water. I don't know what their problem is, but I don't like it. And basically, I think they stink, basically, is what I'm saying. For me to be a visitor, to nobody to know me, and me to visit a church and have this much judgment put upon me, like, we don't know you, what does that have to do with anything? You don't know me. What do you think I'm doing? I'm trying to think about this. Okay, so if you think I'm using you or whatever, that's between you and God. God will repay you. God will deal with everything. That same philosophy they threw at me, I can throw back at them. What do you think I'm doing? I told you this is my testimony. This is how I've raised my family. This is how I've done the work at Life Network before, or been in those circles. This is the work I've done at Save the Storks. You can call and get a reference on me. I mean, you got a good person here, and you're trying to judge me. And so and don't think that, you have to watch my spending, because I am somebody who not only doesn't have a lot of bills, but I also work my butt off helping other people that I don't get paid for. So what is it that you're looking for? And guys, if you look hard enough, you will find a fault. If you take a microscope, you may find a fault in me. Otherwise, there's nothing there. There's nothing that you can really find that I'm doing, that I myself don't judge myself and say, well, maybe you should change this, or maybe you should change that. I examine myself on a regular basis. So, and I hold myself accountable, not only on a channel that's pretty open book here, but with other people. I'm a pretty open book, so I hold myself accountable. So I don't know what you're looking for, but good luck with it, because you're wasting your time. So, yeah. So come out with it, confront them, have a record of what they do. I don't like this guy's face. I don't like his face. I don't like what I've seen. I haven't seen him in person. I've seen a picture of him, but I don't like him. And there's very few people in life I don't like. I probably have maybe two or three people in life I haven't liked. And even then, whatever they did before, it's over and done with. This is probably the only guy on my list right now I don't like. And I really have never not liked a guy as much as I don't like this guy. I cannot stand men in power who are arrogant. There is those who serve in the church, and this is why I would not want to be in leadership myself in a church, is because it's serious. It is very serious. There is a very high calling on a pastor's wife or deacon's wife. It is very serious, and not all are called to be leaders. I am a natural born leader, but in the church, no. No, 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 no. You have a very high calling. You have a great reward, but you have a very high calling to take it extremely serious. And I would not, no, thank you. I would not want to be a pastor's wife or a deacon's wife because, I mean, you're pretty much giving your life to that. That's what you're doing. You're working in a church and you're giving your whole life to that. And you have to be above reproach in everything, in your words, in your attitudes, everything. There should be nothing nobody can find on you. And not that I don't think there's really anything anyone can find on me because I feel I am above reproach, but I just would not want that responsibility. I've had leadership as a wife in that role, as a mother, as a teacher, but I would not want it in a church, guys. Okay, thanks for joining me, guys.